Peace, salam, YouTube. You're like my friend I come and hang out with in between writing. Alhamdulillah, we've been writing a lot. I got some new stuff, completely different topic again. Nothing to do with history, but to do with the past, to do with, well, first the relationship between hostage situations and conflict resolution. That they can seem to have completely different imperative thrusts. The idea of the conflict resolution and the hostage situation. It can seem like basically the easiest thing to do in a conflict situation is to ignore the hostages, and the easiest thing to do in a hostage situation is to storm in and don't worry about making more conflict. Uh, but in either case, it's basically the hostages who get, the civilians who get the short straw in that. So counterinsurgency was a really neat principle, and it was an incredible thing to happen in history. I think I started my essay saying everyone, a whole heap of Muslims are allowed to say, but not obliged to say that the Marine leader McChrystal, he's a hero, and he's a real hero. He brought war forwards into a place that was good for the people being warred upon and the people most affected. Uh, I want to go one step further and say there is no international relationships as of this moment, except for you got to put the civilians first, and it's the civilian first approach which gets rid of the thing we started with, that if you're looking to resolve a hostage situation, it's kind of a different set of ethics and ideals and quantities and names and stuff than to resolve a conflict. So I'm going with hostilities management, that we've got to think about hostage situations in effect and conflict zones and dialecticals in effect, all as one thing. And even as part of hostilities management, weigh up things about, well, are we going to try and save the hostages, or are we going to solve the conflict where that can ever come up? But if you put the civilians first, and only if you put the civilians first, I guess, the civilians are the ones who want peace the most, and they want stability. They want everything the civilian wants is completely reasonable, and they're the only person on the battlefield who you can say that about. The strength alluded to of the Muslim people, who we're all here, we're all together, we're all allowed to communicate with each other. I'm just trying to milk how good that can be for the rest of the world. Obviously, not all of the rest of the world has been interested in stopping Muslims from having an Islamic state. The last Islamic state was in a caliphate, probably was the Ottoman Empire, but that was an Ottoman caliphate to us. It didn't have an emperor, it had a caliph. And that worked out well. Everyone liked the Ottoman Empire. No one was like, stop invading us, Ottoman Empire. Didn't happen. The Ottoman Empire was invaded. It's okay. That caliphate wasn't meant to last forever. That was the Ottoman caliphate, little sub-caliphate in all of God's plan. Still, we're going to have a caliphate, and that's at the beginning a list of well, who is that? Let's take some names and see what our resources are. That's going to be really fun to look at, all the resources. We know that probably all of the estimates from the Western secular world, well, the Western secular world exaggerates itself as a thing, which is why I can win this fight with a pen, because I can just say, look, here's the exaggerations and here's the truth, and oh, look how plain. Alhamdulillah, not a small thing. So basically the estimates of how many Muslims there probably are from the Western secular world, which is the UN and those related parties, well, they're probably undershooting it. So if I'm saying we're the biggest nation on earth already, from there's definitely over 2 billion Muslims, just looking at the Western statistics. How does the West know? They're guessing. So when we take our own names and numbers, we're going to find out that we're not going to increase the world's global population, so it will look artificially, if we do a really good census, that we're even more of the world than people would have imagined, because it's probably, if the West says 2 billion, well, it's probably going to be around 3 billion, and this was 2 billion in 2012, and we're the fastest growing, so it's going to be 3 billion and there's 7 billion people in the world, or nearly 8 billion people in the world. But what we've really done is counted more people in the world, but not been able to add them to how many people there are in the world list. Either way, we're huge. And so one thing we've got to do is say, well, who is this we? And the other thing is to say, simply, what do we ask of the other people? First thing I come to, we got to have the right that if like a Western person rapes a Muslim, we get to kill them because that's how we deal with rape. We're not allowed to change our laws around. We're not allowed to really make exceptions. Like our stability and our goodness, which is hard to see if you haven't seen our goodness, but our goodness is there, and it's because we're really, really clear on what we're really, really clear on. Everything else is liberality. But what we're clear on, we're clear on. If you rape someone, you die, and we're a lot of us living in a rape culture where, like the police, you know, I have plenty of situations where some emasculated little man comes up to me and he wants to make some kind of a ordeal upon me, and I will be able to slay him with my hands there and then, but he's got the entire police state to back him up, that what he was doing is correct, and what I would be doing by ending his life there wouldn't be correct. Well, we can live alongside each other as long as we do not transgress each other. And I mean, invasion is a theme. We come immediately to, we can do anything upon this earth side by side, but if a non-Muslim man rapes a Muslim woman, they should expect to die. Let them rape amongst themselves and get a prison and an Xbox and a no toilet seat. But if you're raping Muslim women or Muslim men or Muslim intersex people, that we've got a religious imperative about that. So I think so. I think that's something that we can't negotiate on. And there's a particular point of history that makes it relevant, that should be kind of where we start. That how there are lines, and the line we most care about is somewhere along here. Invasion, bodies. We want lines. That's the other thing. We need also to be able to define our own situation of marriage. I like how this is coming out in paper because it's quite polemic. We also need, per religious freedom, none to try assert their superior wisdom, prowess, and strength by forcibly trying to write or rewrite for us Allah's marriage revelations. We like our marriage revelation. This is just so beautiful that, the biggest army in the world has tried to assert superior wisdom, prowess, and strength, and change our laws, change our ways, change the fact that we're totally okay with child sex. We're way less okay with men and men sleeping together. It's okay. We're not the same culture. But it's even better because no culture on earth is able to push us around. We just stood up to the biggest bully culture, and it's fallen apart. So that's good. Now, child sex, like, geez, very precious. Don't fuck around with it. Like, marriage isn't good in all situations. Marriage is only good when it's good. And okay, mediocre marriages, tepid marriages, maybe they can be okay. We've got a very like proactive divorce system if it's there, but we also get divorced way less. Our marriage system works. Part of it, and part of our, like, we don't have a rape culture in the same way that the West has a rape culture. I'm saying this as a person who's only lived in the West, but fuck you guys, just fuck you guys. I don't know how else to say it. Decolonialized, thanks. Oh, you got to be so careful when you're having sex with children. Of course you have. You got to be really careful, like, simply to marry a child. When you marry a child and when you have sex with a child, very different circumstances, very different ages, very different optimals in each situation. No one goes into sex with like informed consent about what that's going to be like. More pressingly, children are absolutely people. Where's this category of child? No one has defined it. No one can define it. No one's going to define it. So children and adults can't be morally distinct categories. Sorry, they can't be distinct moral categories. Can't say one thing's right for one and not the other because you haven't defined them. And in fact, it's a kind of segregation. We're all humans. uh, the patriarchal system often sort of says, well, we're the adults, we're the grown-up ones, we're the ones who get to tell other adults and children what to do because we don't act like children, because look, oh, we've got low voices, or we've got beards, or we've got, these markers where in the same ways that alterity, this we're not like them, so we're us, and look, there's this kind of glorification in being a norm that's just part of possibility. It's done to different cultures, it's different to different sexual blah blahs. It's done in all these sorts of ways, and children is one of them. There's no such thing as children as much as there's no such thing as black people. If you can't have a sentence about each one where you can't just replace either with human and not change its truth value, because either it's true of humans or it's not true of black people. Either it's true of humans or it's not true of children. It hasn't been an easy conversation to have, because the entire mythology of a really, really hurting part of the world is in terms of these horrible, hateful categories of segregation that really have never helped anyone. They've never been there to help anyone. They're not natural, they're taught, and they're taught for a reason, which is not to help anyone. For the same principle, not that anyone is behind the strings pulling all the strings, but once the poor unite, the rich are surrounded. It's the only reason we've got any kind of segregation. As they go further and further on, we need more lies. And like, is Muslims have been hanging out next to Europe for as long as there's been Muslims, but it's like this century that now we're suddenly a problem. We've never invaded. Fuck, we don't need to invade. We got the truth. It's okay. I don't think we're going to be two groups by the time I'm done speaking, but for a time we are. Child marriage. Why is that wise? Why does God put a prophet on earth, peace and blessings be upon him, subhanahu ta'ala, that there's only one God? And then like in the mosque, they make a mosque. Day one of moving out of Mecca, getting into Medina, they make a mosque. There's a masjid, not a mosque, a masjid. And in the masjid, there's this little girl there. She's 6 when she moves into the masjid at Nabiya. She's Aisha radiallahu anha. And she's incredibly forthright about sex. If there's one thing you need to know about Aisha radiallahu anha, is no one's standing around asking her, so what was your sex life like? But we know quite a lot. We Not a lot, but we know enough. We know that she had sex at 10. No one asked. She said it. She's an amazing scholar. Um, you'll see people cry just to think about Muhammad's virtues, peace and blessings be upon him. You'll see people cry to think of Aisha's virtues. Um, she okay, so like she's the scholar that we have in Islam, radiallahu anha. There's no other scholars. She invented the format of passing on information without adding anything to it, and we have no other scholars. She invented a really cool thing, the format of it's kind of like a historical tweet where you say the thing and you say who told you and you say who told them, all the way back to her own volition. The school that we've had in Islam, we don't really have teachers, but we have Aisha radiallahu anha, who taught us the format of teaching, which is not. She's incredible. We don't know quite how old well, actually, we could find out. She was 18 when the Prophet died, peace and blessings be upon him. So her life was either going to be she's married to the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, or not. If she wants to do that, she can marry at 17 and have a year together. No. We don't have princesses in Islam, but she's God has blessed her very, very much. And I'm saying that one time, like, women aren't allowed on the battlefield. The Jahili men, the men of ignorance who used to always have fights, they used to bring out some of their wives to stand on the battlefield, a lot like cheerleaders. And also for this thing that, like, you got to fight harder because if you get killed, well, your wives are there, was the plan. Um, Muslims were playing a bit further ahead, didn't really fight a battle unless it was revealed to us that we would. Um, Aisha, she's brought along to one of the battles on a and in one of those boxes that men lift, and she's in a black box, and she's never like okay, so she's got this position of being absolutely a celebrity um, within Islam, but she's never exposed or shown off to people, and always in public behind a veil, unless she's just hanging out at home, and you know she didn't observe veil from women or transgender people, but she is not thrown around as something to be seen. She's just there. And at the beginning of Islam, we've got these massive battles, and we've got this big our first masjid, and we've also got Aisha radiallahu anha who's just there. She's in the masjid. Why? Allah said so, and it's amazing. She just lived there. Like that building's still there, her bedroom's still there. People don't go in there, but it's all still there. Um, Subhanallah, and she's also on the battlefield. Uh, I think that's sweet too. I think that's sweet too. Like, if you're gonna have a big divine revelation, if you're gonna make a new civilization, have a girl there. It there's a beautiful kind of sense it makes that this is a brand new civilization, and it's men fighting and a prophet leading, and he's nothing like the men, really. Peace and blessings be upon him. Uh, and to be fair, there's not many women making decisions about the establishment of Islam in the beginning, depending on. There is only Allah and Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, and subhanahu wa ta'ala, who make decisions about the establishment of Islam. So, where are all the women? Well, there's Aisha. She can be like 8 or 9 or 10 at the Battle of Uhud, just in her veil box. She's allowed to watch. That's the only reason she's there. And then in the Masjid Al Haram, the Masjid Al Nabiya, she is far more than just someone to be there. And in Islam, she is far more than someone to be there. And it's something really, really amazing that Allah has revealed all of this and just placed a little girl in the middle to watch. And for a while, she was a little girl. She grew up to be something so much more superior and greater and like stronger than a little girl, but a little girl who had grown up, and a little girl who had grown up amazingly. Every record we have of her, of what she said herself, we don't have any records like that other than she is mentioning what Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, was like, because that was important for her to do, and she was modest. So she didn't have anything to say about herself. She's content. But she had a lot of very, very special knowledge that not other people could get. So she told it perfectly, without embellishing it, without interpreting it, but adding this new system that no one else had used before. And in fact, it's the referencing system that, the idea of citations. Aisha radiallahu anha formalized this for us 1,400 years ago. Why am I talking about Aisha? Oh, she happened to be married at 6, by her own account. Okay, all she mentions within our record of her, the words that she wrote, is her perspectives, but she doesn't have anything bad to say about Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. He was a pretty good guy. I would have sex with a 6-year-old. Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, did not have sex with a 6-year-old. I would have sex with a 6-year-old if we existed in an entirely different culture where that wouldn't fuck them up for life because they would be told weird shit. I would marry a 6-year-old, and if they seemed willing for it, I don't even know how I'd navigate it, but there's a type of situation where I'd have sex with a 6-year-old, peace and blessings be upon them. Whatever. These are all categories. Allah is one. Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, didn't have sex with Aisha, and like, surely it was mutual, until 10. Until 10. So 4 years. 4 years. They waited, had a child bride, didn't make it about sex. You don't want to make it about sex. Child marriage shouldn't be do. I really, really strongly feel that children should have marital rights because they're having sex anyway. Children should have marital rights. In every situation that children need marital rights, and there are some situations like everywhere, especially when you don't have it everywhere, especially when you don't have it sorted out, where children need marital rights. There's something hurtful about being raped, and there's something hurtful about being married to someone you don't want to be married to, and they're two different things. In both cases, you need marital rights. To say as doctrine that the child cannot choose for themselves, it's dehumanizing. And if to that extent that you believe it, then in fact, there is no moral question about what you would do to their bodies because they don't have agency, they can't choose. But it's not like that. They can choose and they care very much about what happens to their bodies, and they're able to express it. They're able to express it in all sorts of ways and have all sorts of tastes about what happens to their bodies, from whether they're going to be forced to play sports that they don't want to play, maybe contact sports. Definitely the child should be able to consent or not consent to contact sports. School, where they're just going to learn all this stuff that there's not going to be anyone forcing Muslim children into secular schools, and there's not to do stuff. It's not part of our culture, and to set it up would be a huge change. We don't really want everyone having the same knowledge. That's never how we've worked. From day one, we were set up knowing that some people next to us, Jews and Christians, are our friends who they got different knowledge to us. So basically the next thing I'm going to be writing is the child sex thing, which I've been waiting for a long time. Both because I'm basically exclusively attracted to children. Also because I'm surrounded in a rape culture which is hateful to children. Yeah, we're flying. We're flying and called out people who just keep on getting abducted by the police for no good reason, and what it does drag beat them. It's not good. I can't remember why I came on to make a video. I said at the beginning, you're just like company to me. Thank you. Not doing anything else social. One thing that's kind of surprised me in my deductive work is that I think I'm going to insist that we don't have another category for non-cisgendered people, but intersex. Because I am my body, and my body is like all the bits that are inseparable. They're all joined up. How do I know if my body is my body or this cup? Everything in my body is joined up. Well, that also is stuff that you can't measure or weigh, but I'm not just my physical form. No one is just their physical form. And the bit that's connected to that all joined up bit that has my hands in it, it also has my thoughts in it. And it has, even the processes of my thoughts, and it has all sorts. And basically, if the two options that the West gives me is that either I can be a fantasy and I can be a woman, as in I'm deluded and also somehow the object of fantasy because of that delusion, or I can just be a man. Western man I find highly derogatory, and I shall say so. And I don't think that I am a woman in any sort of fantastical way. There's nothing that I have to say about myself which isn't the truth. It's just that whilst I do have all this capacity and strength of a male body, I've also got something manifestly connected to all of this, which is my soul, I guess. Like, to me, a soul is manifestly connected to all of this, which is my soul, I guess. Like, to me, a soul is biological because living things have them. It's all connected. I can't cut off my soul. I can't cut off my conscience. And this is liquids, solids, and gas. But I'm not just solids and liquids and gas. But it is all still all connected to each other in the same way that my finger is connected to my hand. So whilst there is no thing as male and female, like two different shapes that you can say everyone is, and there's no attempt to be able to say, well, what are the, you can't fit all the shapes into two meaningful categories because the category itself isn't that shape. We can point out extrema and say these two are probably going to be really good at mating. That's okay. And then you've got all the people elsewhere who maybe they're just not good at mating at all and they're still fully human. I think this thing to be justified in terms of there's sex and gender and they're distinct. Now, gender's got nothing to do with me because it's social performance and I've got no rules about it. It's not part of my culture. Sex is something that's unique to everyone. You've all got a unique shape. So what's going on here that I get street abuse for being transgendered? I think it's because, it's particularly in the transgender case, it's just removed the idea that we have a body and a soul. That's the only way you can explain it. I've got a body that's that of a male, but I'm not very similar to a male at all, and I have extra capacities to a male. I've got the same general idea of a body, but I don't behave like a male. I'm more forbearing than a male. I try harder than any of the males I see. I'm given the same context, and I try harder than any of the males I see. I am far calmer when faced with emergency. I'm far swifter at ending resolutions when they come to me. I'm nothing like a male. I'm more masculine, and that's because I'm a woman. This doesn't seem like any kind of contradiction to me at all. Put another way, you've got the physical bit, and you've got the bit that changes from culture to culture, time to time, place to place, which is, they can be useful, but they're gender norms, they're performances, they are role plays where a person of this kind of general description enacts this thing that's a bit more specific, and so on. These gender categories don't prescribe what you need to do to be a man or to appear like to be a woman, merely to get approval within that culture as a man or a woman. These aren't to become a man or a woman. In fact, the things I reject, the things they are to get approval. Another thing I reject. All that is exceptional and unique about me is that I haven't sought anyone else's approval. And yeah, most transgender people are autistic. So that's it. Of course, I'm going to act different then if I'm not looking for approval. And you can find that the genderedness, the man across the earth somehow, is much more gendered than the woman, because each culture has its own indicators and understandings of what masculinity and femininity is, and each culture has its own culture of men and culture of women. The cultures of women, they are very similar across all the cultures around the world, and they're not very performative. Cultures of women, what is femininity? It's strengths. I won't say which ones, but it's a set of strengths. Cultures of men, they try and impress each other. Other men, all the masculine things, they don't impress women particularly, they impress other men. That's what they're designed to do. The markers of masculinity. It's how societies are created on top. some people have set of assumptions and they like to show off and say that they're part of the same group and look, we can do this, and then you get a society because it's those same group of people who they want to rule everyone else and tell everyone else what to do. We wouldn't have had so much progress if men weren't so arrogant, for sure. So we've all got our place. We've all got our strengths and weaknesses. I've come down pretty hard on the emasculated man as the cause of rape. The man without opportunities. It fits in with the Western understanding in the literature that most rapes happen as opportunistic rape. Yeah, that's what I'm going to talk about. As an imperative, we need men to have more opportunities because they're strong and fit and they're not given anything to do. And like the only outlets for their energy is to try and impress each other with formal ritual. I had a man try to disturb me yesterday. He broke out into a dance after having threatened me. It was... What are you doing? I'm going to hit you. And then when it came to that point, because I was walking to him like this, when it came to that point where I got too near, I didn't know what to think. But he has aggressed me and tried to do, I don't know, do something. He has aggressed me and tried to do, I don't know, do something. Validated by it and keep walking after him down the street, not shouting, not running after him, just showing him that I'm not to be deterred by fucking dance. I have to put a lot of effort into not validating his action, because many reasons I think I've gone over it 1,000 times, that if I say no, that's not okay, and he just walks off and goes, haha, that person, I can impose upon them, and look, they can rebuke me and nothing happens. Or I don't say that's not okay, and then they go, haha, that person, I can impose upon them, and then I keep on walking. Right? It's quite a lot of effort. I don't really want to be able to hit them, but I hate that if I do, the police are going to grab me and put me into prison. Right? They're holding me vulnerable. The police is keeping everything in place so that many women get raped. And the police don't help about that. They don't have you can't expect the police to help about rape. What could they do? It's a consent culture instead of a rape culture, and the police can't help with that, except by putting down their weapons and fucking off. Back. A group of men with weapons have to hold me back from the men who want to take pot shots at me every now and then, whereas I'm so capable of defending myself. Oh well. We'll change things. I keep writing the word unthreateningly in my papers, so that's probably good. That means if anyone reads that, they won't mistake me for a violent jihadist. I have mentioned the type of jihad which is done with a pen. Know about and would like to see. We at least need to be able to execute those who rape Muslims. I swear I got the coolest job in the world. Well, that's probably going to be me for this morning. Just checking in. Thank you for hearing my thoughts and supporting the idea, the dream. You're the other person, whoever you are, where this dream exists. I'm going to try and make it exist everywhere.